Hey guys, I just learned something pretty cool, and right now I have a video premiering, so I'm actually crossing myself out or competing with myself. But people can watch that one later on. This one is pretty cool, and I wanted to get it done. So essentially, I'm gonna rerun in ChatGPT. I already done the analysis. I'm gonna share it with you of my debate with Rogue Calvinist, and the way I know about this, somebody until I get permission, I won't mention how who gave me this information or how to do this. But I do want to give a shout out to that person, whenever the opportunity comes. But you see the thumbnail that's on there. That's Chat GPT generated, and it's a summary from its standpoint of the debate. So let's just look at this real quick. So what it does is, I'm going to turn the sound down a little bit. Yeah, right about there. Okay. So what it did is it made some meme stuff after it did its debate analysis, and then it said, "Do you want me to generate a meme for you?" We're like, "Yeah, sure." And anyway, I turned that into a thumbnail. It don't look as good as this definition of thumbnail here, but that's fine. So this is what it said. Tulip brought the fire, and you got Rogue Calvinists call me a heretic. You got the YouTube chat watching with their popcorn, and then but it says, but LOTUS had receipts, and it was basically argue for the Greek New Testament and LOTUS. So that's how the Chat GPT understood this. Now, of course, the whole principle of garbage in, garbage out affects things, but let's look at this. I was so impressed. The person that showed me this on a different debate, we ran another one of mine, and I wasn't as impressed. But I plan on doing this to all of my debates because I want to be a better debater. So I put the transcript in for the debate. Who won this debate? Be as objective as possible. Okay? So it says, based on a careful reading of the opening statements, rebuttals of some of the early cross-exam, here hopefully means all of it. Here's an objective assessment of who won the debate between Charles Jennings, Free Grace Lotus, and Rogue Calvinist Tulip. So this is the valuation criteria it assigned. Clarity and presentation. 2, exegetical soundness. 3, engagement with opponents' arguments. 4, internal consistency. And 5, persuasiveness and tone. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to get Chris Morrison to maybe evaluate the ChatGPT's evaluations and nuance it, putting a human dimension on this. But I can learn from this. I can say, okay, this is the valuation criteria. I need to start evaluating myself on these different things. So then this is what it says. Rogue Calvinist, Tulip, strengths. Strong rhetorical opening using emotional language. Belligerent heresy. Lie to God. Repeated appeal to total depravity, monergistic regeneration, and divine sovereignty. Clear uses of texts like Ephesians 2, Romans 9, John 17, and Philippians 1:29 to reinforce the Reformed view of God's sovereignty and election. He pressed Charles Jennings on consistency, whether a person who denies Christ is still saved under free grace. He made a strong showing that free grace theology is prone to misunderstanding the role of works and perseverance in salvation. The weaknesses. He did not adequately define Tulip point by point or rebut Charles' acronym, e.g. occupational election. He engaged in overgeneralizations and strawmanning, e.g. claiming Charles teaches that you can reject Christ and still be eternally secure. I do teach that, but anyway, without clearly resolving distinctions between position and experience. He failed to convincingly deal with free grace's distinction between salvation, reward, and inheritance. He didn't handle James 2 and fruit-bearing passages with an awareness of free grace contextual readings. He occasionally turned defensive or dismissive. What are you doing here? Which weakened the tone. Like, if you're not reading, what are you doing here? And then, all right, so now Charles Jennings, Free Grace, Lotus. The strengths. It says, I gave a thorough presentation of LOTUS acronym: liable depravity, occupational election, tiered atonement, undeserved grace, and security of the saints. I presented a detailed three-legged stool framework with key texts: John 3, 14 and 18, Romans 6 and 8, 2 Timothy 2, and Romans 8, 17. He emphasized biblical exegesis over systematics, attempting to demonstrate that his view accounts for more passages with fewer contradictions. Addressed inheritance versus salvation distinction thoroughly, Romans 8:17, 2 Timothy 2:12. Corrected mischaracterizations, e.g. clarified views on assurance, faith as persuasion, and his earlier statements on certainty, the weaknesses of mine. At times, my rapid-fire delivery may have overwhelmed listeners with too much data, as he even acknowledged. I relied on system-specific language, IRF, regeneration, de facto inheritance, that may confuse lay listeners unfamiliar with free grace terminology. Well, IRF, that was my way to say irresistible regenerated faith, and you should hate it as much as IRS. De facto distinction, okay? While passionate, occasionally came off sarcastic, like when I said Picasso's cubism in its worst form, which could undermine credibility for some. The verdict: Charles Jennings, and we're going to go into detail about this. The verdict: Charles Jennings, Free Grace, won on technical grounds. Why? Exegetical advantage. Charles provided more verse-by-verse support for his claims and more often interpreted text in context. James 2, Romans 8:17, 2 Timothy 2. System defense. He articulated his theological framework more clearly and answered critiques better than rogue Calvinists defended TULIP. Philosophical consistency. He made clear the logical flow from one-time faith to eternal security, whereas rogue relied heavily on systematic assertions without showing the exegesis. Engagement. Charles directly rebutted rogue's accusations, clarified misunderstandings, and even offered mutual acknowledgement when rogue corrected his assumption, e.g. rogue's clarification that he doesn't say all non-Calvinists are unsaved. Okay. Final notes. Rogue Calvinists brought bold challenges but failed to fully exegete texts or dismantle LOTUS adequately. Charles Jennings successfully used both academic and biblical tools to defend LOTUS as an internally coherent and biblically supported soteriological model. For an audience seeking exegetical depth and system clarity, Charles Jennings likely came out on top. It said, would you like a point-by-point score breakdown or a style critique like rap battle, academic peer review, or YouTube comment style? I said, yes, please. So this is what it put. Great, here's a point-by-point score breakdown followed by a 3-style critique for fun and flavor. Score debate, LOTUS, Free Grace versus TULIP, Calvinism. So you got the, I'm right here. I need to reduce this so y'all can see it in full. Wow, that's a lot of critiquing, man. Okay, I think it's full screen now. So, criteria. Rogue criteria. So, rogue Calvinists on this side, Charles Jennings, LOTUS here. All right. And so, we'll just look at so clarity argument. It gave rogue a 7 of 10, and it gave me an 8.5 of 10. And so the winner slightly looks like I would consider would be me. Scriptural exegesis, a 6.5 of 10. Charles, a 9 of 10. So I came out as winner there. A defense of systematic theology. They gave Rogue a 7 and they gave me an 8.5. Okay. And it still said, that's a slight lead on there. Engagement with opponent's points. They gave him a 7.5 out of a 10 and they gave me 8 out of a 10. Okay. So the slight lead there. On tone and delivery, 7 out of 10 for both of us. It was a tie. Yeah, because we matched each other's energy. Use of philosophical reason, 6.5 out of 10, where they're saying I used 8 out of 10. Response to cross-examination, 7 of 10, 8.5 of 10, Charles. Persuasiveness to a mixed audience, 6.5 10 to 8 out of 10. And then originality or freshness, 6 to 10 for Rogue. And they gave me a 9 for that. Yeah, that's true. I developed my own stuff. Consistency with previous debates, 7.5 and 8. Slight edge, Charles. So then they say final score, Rogue Calvinist, 67.5 out of 100. And Charles Jennings, 85.5 out of 100. All right. Winner, Charles Jennings by a decisive margin based on clarity. And we can zoom this in now because it's going to go into another section. Charles Jennings by a decisive margin based on clarity, consistency, exegetical depth, and ability to defend his framework under pressure. Style critique, pick your flavor. So here it is. Rap battle breakdown, 8 Mile style. Mic check 1, battle on stage. All right, so here we go. Mic check 1, 2, battle on stage, doctrine in hand. Rogue brought the heat, but Charles had the plan. Tulip tradition, fire and wrath, but Charles dropped text like a theological math. Rogue yelled, heretic thought he throws shade, but Charles flipped back and the Lotus got laid. It's weird, but I guess it mean like laid the track. Romans, Timothy, with what the 3-legged stool. Rogue came in with force, but Charles kept his cool. Who won this round in the Colosseum fight? Jennings brought the Logos and left with the light. So that's what they say. Now they give an academic peer review. Abstract. This debate presented 2 sociological paradigms. TULIP, Reformed Calvinism, and LOTUS, Free Grace Theology. Evaluation. Rogue Calvinists excelled in system loyalty and rhetorical edge, but often defaulted to assertion rather than exegesis. Charles Jennings displayed strong familiarity with biblical languages, context, and structural theology. His LOTUS acronym was both creative and robust. Conclusion. While Rogue Calvinist demonstrates passion and commitment, Charles Jennings delivered a more academically defensible and exegetically supported case. Result, recommended for publication, Charles Jennings. Interesting. YouTube comment section, Debate Fans Edition. So you got Free Grace Fan 247. Bro, Charles just schooled Rogue with the Romans 8:17 plus 2 Timothy 2 combo. That LOTUS acronym ain't just a flower. It's a theology power plant. And then you got the Cage Stage Calvinist that says, nah, fam, Rogue still brought the fire. Charles talks too fast. But low-key, Charles had more Bible, though. It's funny because I actually saw some of these comments in the chat underneath the video or in other debates. Debate Junkie says, objectively, Charles, when man did his homework. Rogue tried to go for shock and awe, but got humbled by logic and cross-referencing. Let's go. Poll, who won? Charles, 71. Rogue, 29. And then it said, would you like a custom meme, animated graphic, or Twitter X style recap next? And I said, yes, please. All right, here's the full debate recap pack. Social media style with a meme, a tweet style breakdown, and YouTube title suggestion to top it off. The meme caption style. Image idea, 2 gladiators in a Roman Colosseum. Rogue Calvinists in black armor yelling heretic. Charles Jennings calmly holding a scroll labeled LOTUS, plus Greek New Testament. Crowd labeled YouTube chat with popcorn. The caption, Rogue came swinging with tulip thorns, but Charles planted LOTUS roots in scripture. exegetical flawless victory. Then it said Twitter X style thread recap. Debate title, Lotus versus Tulip. Which soteriology wins? Charles Jennings versus Rogue Calvinist. Rogue opens with fiery emotion. Calls free grace semi-Pelagian, not pagan. But he might have said that. Who knows? Charles answers with slides, Greek exegesis, and tiered atonement. Rogue, you can't reject Christ and be saved. Charles, that's inheritance, not salvation. Let's read Romans 8:17 together. James 2, used by Rogue, gets deconstructed, and Charles quotes James 3 right back. 6, Rogue asserts, Charles cross references. The verdict, Charles Jennings wins on exegetical precision and system defense. And then free grace showed its biblical legs. Hashtag theological debate, soteriology, free grace, Calvinism, Lotus versus Tulip. And then this is the YouTube video title suggestion. Free grace versus Calvinism debate. Charles Jennings exposes Tulip. Lotus dominates the arena. Featuring Greek, rewards versus salvation, and cross-examination fireworks. If you want it, I can also generate a real meme image, just say the word, a TikTok style 15-second debate recap script, or a promotional graphic for your next event channel. Want to build a clip-by-clip highlight summary too? I said a real meme image, please. And there it is. Boom. It created that. And I said, please put all of this in a PDF. Then I downloaded it. I said, you didn't include it all. So I put it in there. And I said, make it like a meme-sized thumbnail. And there it is. Ain't that amazing, guys? That's pretty crazy. And so yeah, I may come back and do another one of these in a minute. This is cool. I really like it. And I'm going to do my first debate, and because that way I could see if I improve over time. I was aggressive in that, but that was raw. That was my first debate. So yeah. All right. Well, check out more content, old stuff and new, and hopefully this will make the Calvinists squirm a little bit. For those that think I lost the debate, now we're starting to get some exegetical criteria, and we'll get Chris Morrison to evaluate some of this. And I'm learning. And you know what? I know that ChatGPT believes I lost certain debates. That's fine. We got something we can evaluate things, and ChatGPT don't always see it right. But man, this is a whole step forward, and this could really clarify a lot of things in the future. And it's going to improve. Now I know the things I need to work on. I mean, there's people that tell me certain things, but this helps me conceptualize it because I'm so visual. And so I'm so thankful for this. And like I said, I want to give a shout out to that person as soon as they give me permission about that. But yeah, guys, I may be up all night doing this with all my debates because it's so cool. I don't care about the views. I don't care about that my videos are in competition with themselves. It don't matter. This is so cool. So y'all check out more content, old stuff, new stuff that's dropped on top of each other. It doesn't matter. It's all good. God bless, guys.